What do Kinetic Blast and Burning Arrow have in common? They're going to be my best League starter yet. But this is not just any Kinetic Blast build. This is a Flame Wall Kinetic Blast build. We are going to start this build as an amazing Kinetic Blast build, giving you the most clear speed you've ever had on a League starter and still having some good single target damage, since we'll be shooting our Kinetic Blast through the Flame Wall and scaling its fire damage over time debuff. And we're going to end it as an amazing 20 million or more DPS Burning Arrow Elementalist, a juicer of a map clear and bosser. This build can do it all, bringing you from League start with no gear to end game Chad. Kinetic Blast Flame Wall costs nothing to start, and we're going to be able to take it all the way to the end game, slowly upgrading it, and those upgrades will eventually transition into an amazing Burning Arrow character. I will hold your hand with my POB through the entire League start process, leveling, early maps, moderate gear, red map upgrades, and finally, the transition into Chaddom that is Burning Arrow Elementalist. Now that Explode Chest has been nerfed, Burning Arrow Clear is going to be the new staple of clear speed, proliferating your ignites screens and screens away. This is the new way to chain clear maps, unless you want to buy an 8 Exalt base cost Impulsas. Elementalist is so OP right now. You get 2,200 damage shield. That's an entire steel skin on top of your character for elemental damage. That is insane. You are elemental reflect immune. Feel free to elk and corrupt your maps. Who cares? It's softcore and you're reflect immune. Did I mention you're also ailment immune? Burning, shocked, ignite, chill, freeze. None of that. We don't have to worry about a thing. We're getting 30 fizz damage reduction from our Chaos Golem, 1,000 life regeneration from our Stone Golem, a ton of attack and cast speed, global damage, and some accuracy rating from our other golems. This is insane. You don't even have to resummon your golems. If they die, they will resummon themselves. It's perfect. So we don't die in these ultimatum encounters. We're going to scale that fizz damage reduction by picking up some Basalt Flask, a Taste of Hate, and capping our block while getting life on block on our shield. It is going to be a breeze. Let's take a second and talk about how exactly this Flame Slinger will work. So we are going to use a Kinetic Blast linked to a GMP setup. Now, there are some different variations depending on what point of the build you're on. In this point, with these boots, I have Pierce. So now I have a Hex Touch and Flammability set up on my KB so that it applies Flammability and so that I get an extra 4 projectiles. So to get our damage, because the KB is just how we get the damage to the monster, we get our actual damage from Flame Wall's secondary debuff damage. Right here, that second line there, secondary debuff deals X fire damage per second. That is where we get all of our fire damage from. Now, it would be so annoying to put a Flame Wall down and shoot through it every single time. So we link it to Spell Slinger, so it does it automatically. Thank you, GGG, for introducing this amazing gem into the game, so I don't have to press another button. Every single time I shoot Kinetic Blast, the Flame Wall goes down, and as long as I have the Flame Wall just a little bit out, my Kinetic Blast will go through it. Now, if I hold too close to my character, the Kinetic Blast kind of doesn't really have the time to go right through the Flame Wall, so it does need to be a little bit out. But don't worry, once you get to the boss, you can kind of just stand on top of it, shooting a bunch of Flame Walls out, guaranteeing the KB is always going through your Flame Wall. And that is where we get all of our damage from. Later on, what makes Burning Arrow so great is that we don't have to use a Spell Slinger setup for our damage. We get to just have a 6-link Burning Arrow, which no longer requires us to shoot through a Flame Wall. We can subtract the Flame Wall entirely and instead use some actual auras to mega boost our damage. Now, let's talk about the Burning Arrow damage and how we're going to scale it. First, we're going to use Zoph's Nurture because it gives us a free Ignite Proliferation, which is a pseudo 7-link. It's got some nice fizz on it, and we get instant life recovery when we ignite an enemy. The burning arrow itself is going to convert 100 physical to fire damage, and it's going to deal extra debuff damage based on the damage of our ignite, which is sick. This is why we use the burning arrow. It also gives us more damage with ignites on top of the extra debuff. So this debuff can stack up to 5 times, and they're kind of like, an easy way to think of this is they're sort of like a other ignite. This debuff is dealing fire damage over time. It's just based on our ignite damage. So it's like another kind of mini ignite that you want to stack up 5 times. So when you are playing Burning Arrow, you want to hit the enemy at least 5 times as fast as you can to get the maximum ramp up damage. This is not too hard because we do get a lot of attack speed from our lightning golem, and having onslaught up, depending on where you get it from, will be more than enough attack speed to get that debuff duration up to 5 and to keep it there, inflicting the most burning damage that we can with Burning Arrow. And on top of this, we get to use Vol Burning Arrow, which has been buffed yet again alongside all of the new buffed Vol skills. Vol Burning Arrow is this huge explosion. It feels so sick to use it. You just unleash this huge boom, just obliterating everything and giving this huge ignite. I can't wait to be able to use Vol Burning Arrow even more in this new Vol skill league because it looks, feels, and sounds so cool. All of the upgrades we get on our Fire Kinetic Blast build are going to easily transition into our amazing Burning Arrow Blaster. Burning Arrow Elementalist is so OP right now. You still get all of the crazy shenanigans that we get from our golems, the Ellie Reflect, the shield, but you'll also take advantage of Elementalist's Shaper of Flames, which makes it so your hits always ignite and all of your damage can ignite, while also giving you a 25% more damage with Ignite Boost. This is so busted right now. You can scale whatever damage you want. Grab that Ritual Blizzard Crown. I know you thought about it. Minus 10 cold res. Why would anybody want to use that? Well, we're an Ignite build. We only care about minus fire res. And guess what? We can use that cold damage to boost our Ignite even harder. Wrath on an Ignite build? Hell yes. We're going to get a Watcher's Eye, and it's going to give us Gain Fizz as extra lightning. And guess what? That extra lightning is going to let us have a bigger Ignite. All of this damage here, chaos, fire, physical, cold, anything at all is going to scale our Ignite even harder. So we take advantage of all damage sources and boost our Ignite damage into the tens of millions while maintaining some crazy clear speed from a Barracks Respite, proliferating our ignites, and also Zoph's Nurture, giving us ignite proliferation on the bow itself. Now, do you need both of these? Yes. If you don't have Barracks and the Zoph bow, it's gonna feel pretty bad. You can try it out right now. Go ahead. I think it feels a lot worse. I'd rather be playing the Fire KB. So I've created a minimum Burning Arrow gear set for you and a Burning Arrow tree so that you can easily transition from Fire Slinger, carrying over most of the tree, most of the gear, into a Burning Elementalist Chad. Not only is this build great for solo play, but if you're like me and you're going to have a friend, this is going to be a great duo build. It's going to be so easy to start, and oh my god, can you imagine having auras from your friend, if you got one, boosting your ignite damage too? It's going to be crazy. Somehow, Elementalist almost completely dodged all of the nerfs in this path of nerf expansion. And that is why I think this is going to be my best League Start recommendation. And if you haven't already, go ahead, hit the subscribe. I know you're yoinking this. It's okay. It's League Start time. Let's get into it. We've got our leveling trees, 1 to 12, 12 to 25, all the way, taking you, holding your hand through the labyrinths, up until you're going to be a cluster, a red map gamer, and then an endgame kinetic blast gamer. Don't worry, I'll take your hand and we'll transition you into Burning Arrow Elementalist. Very nice and smooth. We've got trees to help you through leveling. We've also got skill sets to help you leveling. I'll hold your hand all the way from level 1 until you end up in early maps with the Flame Wall Kinetic Blast. By the way, you can swap to this after you kill Gravicious in Act 3. Make sure you keep an eye out for some 4 links at level 25. We will be using the standard Orb of Storm, Storm Blast, Mine start all the way up until Gravicious, but beyond that, you get to blast away, shooting your Kinetic Blast or Kinetic Bolt if you prefer, all the way until we hit maps and onward. Our Flame Wall is going to scale off of mainly burning damage. We'll scale that with more elemental damage, spell damage, and damage over time. We're going to shoot the Kinetic Blast through our Flame Wall, so we want a couple extra projectiles. We want those projectiles to pierce, and we want them to combust, giving minus resistance so the enemy takes more burning damage. Since I don't like pressing buttons, I'm gonna go ahead and use Arcanist brand, linked to Wave of Conviction and Flammability. I know, Wave of Conviction's nerfed. It's still penetration, all right? We still have to use it. If it's nerfed or not, we still gotta use it. In our ring, like we did with Ice Trapper, we're going to use Malachi's Artifice to give elemental equilibrium to our Chaos Golem. Now, if you don't have a jewel that gives cold and lightning to minions, go ahead, grab your lightning golem and put it in here. But I prefer not to use lightning golem if I can help it, because the lightning golem will shoot through my flame wall, give it fire damage, and now the monster has fire resistance. Elemental equilibrium makes your hits against enemies give them plus 25 resistance to whatever elements you hit with them, and minus 50 to elements you don't hit them with. So when we put our Chaos Golem in here, we want it to have cold or lightning damage so that it gets plus 25 cold and lightning, but minus 50 fire resistance to whatever enemy it hits. So it's important that you use Chaos Golem if you can. Otherwise, throw your Lightning Golem in here. Just be wary, your Lightning Golem does have a projectile ability. It will shoot it through the flame wall. It will give fire damage sometimes, and it will give resistances. So I do recommend the Chaos Golem. Our boots, make sure it's an armor base. We're going to throw Flame Golem, Steel Skin, put it on your left mouse button, Herald of Ash, and Stone Golem. Our movement is going to be Flame Dash, Smoke Mine. If you don't want to press Smoke Mine, that's fine. I don't mind for that extra 30 move speed. Arcane Surge gives us spell damage when we spend mana on Flame Dash and when we spend mana on Smoke Mine. Keep it at level 1, 2, or 3. Also, you want a unlinked green socket in your helmet. Put a level 1 precision on there to give us a little bit of flat accuracy, because we do have to hit with Kinetic Blast. In our offhand and our shield, we're going to use Ice Golem, Lightning Golem, and a level 5 Clarity. Now you can change the level on this Clarity, but I think 5 is a real nice sweet spot where we don't really have to rely on our Mana Flask too much, and we can kind of just let it ride on that Clarity, which is what I prefer. Now, make sure you do not go past this line until you're prepared to do Burning Arrow. Please check the notes before you try to go to Burning Arrow. Make sure you have all of the gear and make sure you've got enough dex, because that bow needs a lot of dex. Because that bow needs 185 dexterity, and you do not want to be getting that all on your tree. It's going to be a huge sink of points. So try to get that on your pieces before going to Burning Arrow. Essence of Sorrow is a great way to get dexterity on your rare pieces early on. Make sure you pick them up and use them. For your League start gear, go ahead, check the notes. It's the wand recipe. Just vendor a magic wand, magic ring, and a alteration at level 8, or magic wand, rare ring, and an alteration at level 20. Go ahead and grab life and resistance on all of your pieces, and don't forget, grab a Malachi's Artifice, as this damage boost is crazy good. And remember, if you can, grab an Abyss Jewel that gives cold damage to your minions, so your Chaos Golem can proc EE. Otherwise, use your Lightning Golem until you have an Abyss Jewel. Our early mapping gear is going to be +1 wand, +1 shield, a tabula rasa, and life and res wherever you can get it. Also, we could pick up the Pyre, which is a super cheap and super good ring, giving us 70 burning damage and a ton of cold and fire resistance. Once you go into red maps, try to get a spell damage and +1 fire wand, go ahead, craft some fire dot multi on there as well. We're going to pick up a Lion Eyes Remorse because it gives some insane life on there and is a great shield until we can craft our more moderate to expensive shield for the Kinetic Blast setup. As soon as you can, pick up a Eye of Malice. This helmet is crazy good on Elementalist because you might think, wow, increasing fire and cold resistance, that's bad, but increasing a negative, that's good. So we make sure the enemy is negative in their resistance and we increase that negative by 50%, providing some huge damage to our flame wall debuff damage. A +2 socketed duration gem tabula is crazy good for how much it'll cost. This should be about 40 to 50 chaos on League Start, is unnecessary but is such a sick upgrade and will retain its value fairly well throughout the early league. If you can, get some hunter gloves with fire damage over time multi, life, and res. Our boots are going to be life, res, speed. Our amulet's going to be life and res, and we're still going to use the pyre and Malachi's artifice. Our belt is going to be a Stygian with as much life as we can get on there and some chaos resistance if you can. I know we're softcore, but you still got to get some chaos res. Try to get a minion cold damage and onslaught when you use a flask. This mod is actually pretty snazzy as you can get onslaught fairly often by pressing your flask while you're mapping, which you should do anyway, and we'll get onslaught on bosses when we don't have access to on-kill mechanics. Getting that onslaught on flask use jewel will let us get a Rumi's concoction so we can get a little bit closer to our spell block and prepare ourselves for when we craft our 6th shield. That 6th shield is going to cost about 67 pristine fossils, so it is towards the end of the gearing section, but boy is this sick. This shield is going to give us 5% life every single time we block. It's also going to give us some life and a little bit of spell block on top, just to make sure when we don't have our roomies up that we're still pretty close to the cap of the block. Otherwise, when your roomies goes down and you don't have this mod, you're going to be a little bit lower. That's okay if you're omega poor, or if you want to just cheap out a little bit and you don't mind relying on roomies, you can not roll for the spell block. You can go ahead and just get that life on recovery, as that is the super good part. The only other change that we're going to get on the moderate gear section is going to be our amulet. We're going to try to pick up the primordial chain. This lets us obtain 3 extra maximum golems, which is so good because now we can get even more golems, which gives us even more golem buff effect and damage. Before we swap the burning arrow as well, you should go ahead and pick up some of these very good jewels. Try to grab primordial eminences. These will not be that expensive. They just give some golem buff effect, and these are a sick pickup because they give us extra fizz damage reduction and extra life regeneration. Once you get a primordial chain and 2 primordial essences, you'll have 3 primordial on your equipment, and if you have 3 primordial on your gear or through your jewels, you get to take advantage of this sick prismatic jewel called the Anima Stone, which gives us an extra 2 maximum golems, giving us even more buff effect and damage. In the moderate gear section, I want you to go ahead and pick up one of these clusters. Now there's a ton of different combinations for the primordial bond. Mainly, you want to get Rotten Claws up here so that it pushes the primordial bond down into the bottom right, so it only takes 1 point to get. But you can also get, on top of primordial bond, you can get either Rotten Claws or Raise and Pillage, and those will do it as well. For the earlier medium clusters, you can grab either a Cooked Alive, which synergizes very well with our Eye of Malice, or you can get Burning Bright medium clusters, and in them, socket any max life and fire damage overtime multiplier jewel you can get. If you can get some extra stuff on this, that's very nice. You can get things like chaos resistance or just extra damage on these jewels alongside the max life and fire dot multi. But once you go to the end game section, try to get a Burning Bright and Cooked Alive on your cluster jewel setup, as this is a lot of extra damage and keep in mind, when we swap to Burning Arrow, we want it to be cooked alive and blowback. So if you get a cooked alive and blowback early, please keep it. Do not roll over. Cooked alive and blowback is the best medium cluster that you can get. And even if you're not using it, I bet you can sell this and make a ton of money as you go on your way to craft a Burning Bright and Cooked Alive cluster. Or if you're fine, you can just do the Cooked Alive. You do not need to have Burning Bright on there. It's just a little bit of extra damage. In the top of the Witch slot, we're going to get a Transcendent Mind, giving us damage over time multiplier based on the intelligence in this area. This is a lot of damage. And over here, we're going to use a Fluid Motion to transform Strength to Dexterity, which gives us 64 Dex. And this is going to come in very handy when we need to transition into Burning Arrow. All right, you've completed the entire game. You've done your Cyrus, you've done some ultimatums, you've blasted some maps, and you've done some of the Maven invitations, some easier than others. The Feared is a little tricky on this, but I was able to do it, although it took 6 portals, but I was doing it on some pretty budget gear. I had some pretty moderate upgrades here, but now you're ready to invest some of your money that you've been grinding out on this fast mapper. It's time to transition into Burning Arrow. It's time to check out the notes. You need to make sure you have all of your gear ready before you swap. It's going to be really bad if you don't. Try to get as much dex as you can, jewels, gear, and if you need, you can do some passives. Most of the gear is going to transition over to the Burning Arrow. Pretty much all of the jewels, except we now want to have blowback on our clusters. So if you have Cooked Alive clusters, that's fine. You don't need the blowback right away. They're just very nice to get. The tree is almost exactly the same. We're just going to drop Glancing Blows and some of the block, and we're going to pick up just a little bit more life and some extra damage on the tree. Also, make sure that you transition your skill section over so that you can see exactly how much damage your Burning Arrow is going to do and what exactly links you'll need. So go ahead, enable all of your links, make the big swap over, make sure you change to the minimum Burning Arrow respec, make sure you change over to the Burning Arrow tree. Now, this is the minimum gear that I recommend transitioning to. You're going to get a Zoph's Nurture in a at least 5-link setup. Now, if you can get a 6-link, that's huge because that's a lot of extra damage. Go from 3.4 to 4.6, but it's fine on a 5-link. It'll be okay as long as you have these other pieces, namely a Pierce Quiver with Fire Dot Multi, Life, Crafted, Ellie Attack. You want to get Dex on your helmet, Life and Res, Dex, Life and Res on your body armor, and keep in mind, when you swap to Burning Arrow, the only 6-link you need is going to be the Zoph's Nurture. For now, you can put your golems in an unlinked, at least 4-socket chest piece, as we will not use all of the links in the very moderate, very cheap Burning Arrow setup. Try to get some gloves with Fire Dot Multi, Life, and Res. The Fire Dot Multi rolls on this gear are super important. They give us a ton of damage. Our boots, we want to try to grab Hunter Influence boots with projectiles pierce 2 additional targets. You can play with just the pierce from the quiver, but I found when I was doing some things like Legion or big juicy packs that I really wanted that extra pierce for when the ignite wouldn't proliferate that distance away. You don't necessarily need these, but it is something that I found made the build feel a lot better. Our Primordial Chain will carry over, and the Barracks Respite will provide our clear, igniting all nearby enemies when we kill an ignited enemy, and the Zoph's Nurture giving us ignite proliferation. This 1-2 whammy is going to be our new Explode chest now that they took our old one away. The ring is going to be Malachi's Artifice. It's just too hard to give this up unless you juice it with a lot of money. And our belt's going to be Dyed in Dawn, giving us ignites, dealing damage faster, giving us life, giving us res, and some extra strength. Our flasks are going to be the same. We want instant life. We want to have an enduring mana flask. You can put warding on this if you like. I very much prefer to have warding on my mana flask because our mana flask is going to be up much more often than any other flask. Since all of our damage can ignite, we'll use an Adziri's Promise to gain 20 Fizz as extra chaos and 15 elemental as extra chaos as well. That extra chaos damage able to ignite because of the Elementalist Ascendancy. Taste of Hate for the exact same reason, also giving us some nice physical damage taken as cold, which is pretty much physical damage reduction. So this 20 Fizz gained as extra cold is going to be in our ignite calculation because of Elementalist Shaper of Flames, where our hits are always igniting and all of the damage with our hits can ignite. Lastly, just grab a Quicksilver with increased move speed on here, as the Elementalist is a little slow compared to some other builds that may get some move speed buffs elsewhere. We have to get it everywhere on our flask. Our Anima Stone, the Eminences will carry over, our Transcendent Mind will carry over. We'll have that Fluid Motion in Templar, now giving us 84 dexterity, saving us a ton of points. So let's talk about the Burning Arrow skills. We're going to have a level 21, if you can, Vol Burning Arrow, linked to elemental damage with attacks because it's an attack, deadly ailments because ignite is an ailment and we want to deal more ailment damage, burning damage because it's burning, GMP because I found that it felt pretty bad when we didn't use GMP. You can go ahead and swap GMP for Swift Affliction on bosses if you'd like, but I like to have those extra projectiles shooting out to make bossing much easier, so I'm not trying to skill shot one little arrow into a boss. I'm really just shooting a cone of damage out there. And our last link, if you get the 6th link, is going to be Unbound Ailments. We'll have Steel Skin on left mouse button, dash and second win for our movement, and Blood Rage, using it so we get Frenzy Charges, which give us 12% more damage. Frenzy Charges, pretty big. They give us some attack speed too. Our golems in the chest piece will have a Arcanist Brand, Wave of Conviction, and Flammability setup. So on bosses, we'll just throw an Arcanist Brand down. It'll do all the work for us, and we can run around shooting our Burning Arrow without a care in the world. Now that we're not using Flame Wall, we'll throw Summon Lightning Golem in our ring, not having to worry about it shooting through the Flame Wall. Now we don't need that added cold Abyss Jewel. And our auras are going to be Malevolence because it gives us more damage over time and skill effect duration, Clarity to help us with our mana, and Herald of Ash to give us more fire damage and to give us gain 15 Fizz as extra fire damage, which is so much extra damage. This is the minimum jewels, gear, skills, and tree that I recommend you swap to for Burning Arrow. You need to make sure you've got almost everything here to the T. Now, if you can't get Fire Dot Multi on the gloves, that kind of sucks. You'll be okay, but you need to make sure that you get all of the uniques. They're super, super important. And you need to make sure that you check the notes and go to the Burning Arrow tree with the Burning Arrow skills on the Burning Arrow Respec minimum gear set. You gotta match them all up. The Burning Arrow expensive is when it gets super, super juicy. You're gonna be grinding those maps. You're gonna be exploding Blights, Delirium, Legion, and bosses away with your Burning Arrow damage. And now you get to spend your hard-earned exalts absolutely juicing this build out the wazoo. We're going to get Awakened Gems on everything. And now that you have all the damage in the world, you can go ahead and use Awakened Swift Affliction. Very quickly, on bosses, once you swap to Burning Arrow, you can swap out Barracks Respite for a Replica Emberwake if you can get your hands on one of these, as this is a huge, huge damage increase. And we don't need the Ignite Proliferation, so this is very, very nice to pick up. If you don't want to use Awakened Swift Affliction, go ahead and swap it out for GMP. But at this point, you have so much damage that a few arrows alone on a monster should be able to take it out. So if you miss a couple, it's all right, because the ones that hit are going to demolish it. Steel Skin still on left mouse button, dash and second win for movement, but now our golems are going in our body armor, and we're going to link them with Empower level 4 to boost them up. Also, if you can, the anomalous quality here gives a ton of extra buff effect, which means more life regen, phys damage reduction, damage and accuracy. Very, very good. Lightning Golem in the EE ring, still rocking that arc in his brain, wave of conviction, flammability, combustion, so we don't have to press buttons. But now, our auras are going to be Enlightened level 4, a Wrath, a Malevolence, and a Clarity. Remember, now that we're juicing it up, a Watcher's Eye with gain Fizz as extra lightning damage while affected by Wrath is sick. If you get the same on Anger, use Anger. If you get flat cold on Hatred, use a Hatred aura. Whatever you can get with this damage over time multiplier while affected by Malevolence is a-okay, because remember, any damage we get on this build will immediately transfer into more Ignite damage, whether it's cold, lightning, fire, chaos, or Fizz. Don't forget to pick up a Mantra of Flames as soon as you can. This is in the Respec, but I forgot to mention it just a bit ago. This adds a ton of fire damage because each golem on you is a buff. Now, people used to use this while stacking all those Headhunter buffs. That, unfortunately, can't happen now that they nerfed them, but that's alright because we get to use this for our golem buffs, adding a bunch more fire damage, giving us even more Ignite damage. Look at this, dude. This one jewel gives us 10% of our combined damage. We get 2.7 million damage from Mantra of Flames. That's crazy. Our Burning Arrow expensive quiver is going to be Fire Dot Multi, Life, Elemental damage with attacks, and Dex, so we don't have to get it on the tree. Our helmet is a Blizzard Crown. This is so cool. A Blizzard Crown adds 80 to 122 cold. That cold will ignite. And on that Blizzard Crown, you're going to want to get the Burning Arrow 24% increase debuff effect. The Burning Arrow debuff is where we get almost all of our damage from. That is why we want to hit with Burning Arrow 5 times. Our chest piece is going to be a Hunter Influence chest with Dex, Life, and percent life, alongside whatever resistance you can get on there. Whether you got a multi-modded or not, it doesn't matter. Gloves are going to be Fire Dot Multi, Life, and Resistance. If you can grab some Atsuatl gloves, that's really cool too, but you're not really going to be able to get Fire Dot Multi and that burning damage Atsuatl mod, so whatever you can get that fills your life and resist out is a-okay. The boots, we're going to want those +2 Pierce, and now you can get Ignites dealing damage faster, which is really, really good. Still rocking Primordial Barracks, Malachis, and the Diadem, but now we're going to pick up a Cinder Swallow. Cinder Swallow is sick because enemies ignited are going to take 10% increased damage, which means 10% more damage. If you want, you can swap your Life Flask out for a Bottled Faith, but while that is a lot of damage, now you don't have Bleed, unless you get Corrupted Blood somewhere. But then if you ever get hit by some puncture move, then you're kind of SOL. So I prefer to have a instant Life Flask to help get me that little bit of extra life. And now that we've given up so many flasks for a unique flask, we're going to have to use a Quicksilver Flask of Warding. In this expensive setup, I like to use Replica's Conqueror Efficiency to give our skills -9 total mana cost, giving our Burning Arrow a mana cost of a measly 11, easily allowing our low-level Clarity to out-regen our attack speed on our Burning Arrow. And now in the expensive section, we're going to use a double cluster setup. This Primordial Bond giving crazy good damage per summon golem and golem buff effect, alongside some Cooked Alive and Blowback on each and every one of our jewel sockets. Because this is the juicer section, you might as well do as much damage as you can. I cannot wait to start as this build, going all the way from the bottom up until I reach this point. I think this is going to be one of the most fun builds I have ever played. Anyways, I'll see you guys in League Start. I am going to be playing this. Catch me live at Twitch down in the description. Go ahead, click it, follow it, subscribe. If you made it this far and you didn't subscribe, that's actually so weird. That's so weird. You watched this long and you didn't subscribe. I've been talking about a path of building this whole time and you didn't like and subscribe. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.